Hey friends, welcome back to Homestead on a Prayer. In case you're new here, my name's Jennifer, and today we have an exciting project lined up. I am going to be planting for the very first time some wine-capped mushrooms. So I got this bag of mushroom spawn in the mail, and today we're going to be working on prepping the area to plant these and then planting them together. So as I said, this is going to be the first time that I've grown these mushrooms, or really any mushrooms. I decided that wine-capped mushrooms would be a great one to start with because it sounds like they're pretty much the easiest mushroom to grow. You don't have to, now see, I don't know very much about growing mushrooms, but it's always been a process that kind of intimidated me a little bit, just stacking the logs, inoculating the logs. It just seemed like something I wanted to do eventually down the road. But when I heard about wine-capped mushrooms and how easy they are to start, I decided that that would be the perfect mushroom to start with. So today we are going to do just that. We are going to learn together how to plant these mushrooms, and hopefully we'll have a great harvest. Now, wine-capped mushrooms, they say that you can plant them any time of year as long as they have time to really get established before frost. Now, it's the very end of June here in Connecticut, and so we have several months before frost, and so these should be good. I don't know if we are going to get a harvest this fall or not. We may not get a harvest until next spring, but either way, I figured it was a great time to go ahead and get these mushrooms established so that we can harvest from them for many years. So I'm going to show you the site that I picked to plant these, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that. Okay, so this area here, you can see this is kind of covered with fallen leaves. This is the area that I've chosen to plant the mushrooms. Now, just as an aside, you probably will hear some scratching and rustling in the background. You're probably hearing that even now. That is my chickens. They've decided to join us on this fun project today, so they're all around. You'll probably get a glimpse of them here and there throughout this video. Anyway, so back to the mushrooms. I have this area here, which is kind of in a corner. It's on the edge of the woods. You can see this fence here. My vegetable garden is on the other side of this fence. But I do have this just welded wire fencing here. This protects this area from my chickens. You can see over here behind this fencing, I have some raspberries growing. So I had to put up this fence to protect the raspberries from the chickens. So I'm going to put the mushrooms behind this fence as well. So there are a few things that I have to do to this area to really get it well prepared to plant our wine-capped mushrooms. The first is that I'm going to need to pull up all of these weeds. I'm sure you've seen that this area has quite a few weeds in it, so I'm going to have to pull all of those out. I'm also going to have to rake away all these fallen leaves because from what I've been reading, wine-capped mushrooms, although we are going to plant them in wood chips, but they like to have some contact with the ground. So we're going to take away all of the weeds, the leaves, the debris from this area to really prep it well for our mushrooms. Now, I've chosen this area for a couple reasons. One is, as I mentioned, it's on the edge of my woods, so it gets a little bit of sun here and there, but for the most part, it's kind of in dappled shade most of the day. And mushrooms don't really prefer a lot of sun. They'll be fine with a little bit of sun, but a small amount of sun is better for them. And because this area doesn't get a lot of sun, there isn't really a lot of other plants that I can grow in this area, so it's an area that isn't really getting used for very much right now. So I decided it was a good spot to make use of and to grow some mushrooms in. Another reason I chose this area is because it is already behind the fence. Now, I have recently discovered that my chickens love mushrooms. I never would have thought of mushrooms as being something that they really like. This is a completely random aside. If anyone knows, chickens are pretty good about avoiding plants that are toxic and poisonous to them. Does anyone know if they're also good about avoiding toxic mushrooms? Because I have been, since I discovered how much my chickens love mushrooms, they've been eating random mushrooms in the lawn, which I'm not a big fan of because I'm afraid that they're going to get poisoned. I've been pulling mushrooms out of the area where the chickens have access as soon as I see them. If anyone knows if I need to do that, I don't know if chickens know enough to stay away from toxic mushrooms or not. If anyone knows that, please let me know in the comments. So, back to our wine-capped mushrooms. So as I said, I'm going to go ahead and prep this area, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to lay down the substrate for our mushrooms to grow in. Now, I did purchase this bag of mushroom spawn online. I got mine from North Spore. I have heard good things about them. They've been recommended to me by a few people, and so I decided to try that company. There are other companies that also have good recommendations as well. I'm not affiliated with any of them. I'm just letting you know where I got my mushrooms from in case you want to purchase some also. So let's start by prepping this area, and then we'll talk about how we're going to actually lay down the substrate and create the bed for our mushrooms to grow in. Okay, so here's the after. You can see I got most of the leaves raked up. And so now we have a nice clean canvas of ground to plant our mushrooms in. Okay, so you can see here that I have a wheelbarrow full of wood chips. Winecap mushrooms like to grow in wood chips. These wood chips are a little bit aged, which is not the most ideal, but it should still work okay. Basically, the primary advantage of these specific wood chips is that they were free. My sister built a new house last fall, and so they had piles of wood chips in their yard. And so I was able to come and fill up my trunk for free and just get all these wood chips. Now this is a mix of different types of wood. It's got some hardwoods, some soft hardwoods. I don't think it has very many softwoods in it, which is good because winecap mushrooms prefer semi-aged hardwood or a soft hardwood chip. I did not see any evidence of mushrooms growing in them already, so that's a positive thing. So you can see here that these wood chips are a variety of sizes. There's sticks and twigs in here. There's some bigger pieces, but there's a lot of smaller pieces too. That is what you want because they're going to decompose at different rates. And so having pieces of wood that are going to decompose at different rates will feed your winecap mushrooms for a longer amount of time. So to start with, I'm going to just scoop these wood chips out. I'm going to cover the area that we prepped with about 1 inch of wood chips. Okay, so you can see that I have this area where the mushrooms are going to go all prepped. I've put down about a 1 inch thick layer of wood chips to cover this whole area. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to open up our bag of mushroom spawn. We're going to scatter this all across the wood chips, covering the whole area. And then we're going to cover them with another layer of wood chips, this time about 2 inches thick. And then we're going to water it in really well. Now these wood chips are pretty wet right now, but we are still going to water them in. You're going to want to water your mushrooms, especially when they get established, the same way that you would water a vegetable garden. So you can see what this mushroom spawn looks like inside. It's got these kind of chunks that we're going to sort of break up and scatter. Now you don't want to open this bag until you're actually ready to plant because they could dry out or they could be likely to get moldy. So now it's opened up. We're going to scatter these all across our planting area back there, and then we're going to cover them with more wood chips. Okay, so we've got our mushroom spawn all scattered. I'm not sure if you can really see it that well in the video, but I spread it out as evenly as possible to distribute it all across the wood chips. It has a really interesting smell. It's kind of hard to describe. It's not a bad smell. It's kind of earthy with a little bit of maybe something almost fermented in it. It's interesting. So I'm really curious to see how these mushrooms do. So now that we have our mushroom spawn all scattered over the first layer of substrate, the wood chips, we're going to now add a second layer of wood chips on top. This one's going to be a little bit thicker, about 2 inches. And then we are going to water our mushrooms in. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed planting our winecap mushrooms together. I'm definitely going to keep you guys updated about how these do. I'll let you know when they first start to fruit. I'm hoping for a harvest this fall, but I know with planting them this late in the season, we may not get a harvest until next spring, but I'm definitely going to keep you all updated about how they do. Now, because these wood chips are a little bit aged, they've been sitting out for a few months, I'm going to try to, at some point, maybe later this fall, get some fresh wood chips and add another little layer to this, just to give the mushrooms a little bit more material to kind of decompose and feed on. And now I've heard people say that you can keep these beds going for several years if you keep adding fresh wood chips to them, so I'm definitely going to try that. The other thing that I plan to do is once this bed is really established, you can take parts of like what's called the mycelium, which is basically like mushrooms' version of roots. You can take parts of that out of the bed and add it to a separate wood chip bed to inoculate another area and kind of create some offspring from the mother bed, I think they call it. So anyway, we are going to, once our mushrooms really get established, we're going to give that a try. I'm going to definitely let you all know how that works. Hopefully it's going to work really well, and hopefully we will be able to keep these mushrooms going for many years and treat them like a nice perennial harvest in our garden. So I hope that you're inspired to try something new, whether it's growing mushrooms or whether it's something else. Just let me know in the comments what you're trying new this year, something new that you've never done before. And also, if you have grown mushrooms before, especially if you've grown wine caps, But if you've grown any other types of mushrooms, leave a comment and let us know how it went. Let us know how easy it is. If there's any other mushroom varieties that you recommend that are really easy for beginners, definitely let me know that too, because I would love to grow some more varieties as well. I should probably not get ahead of myself though. I should probably focus on my first mushroom variety that I just planted and see how that goes. And then maybe soon we'll add another variety into the mix too. So I hope you're having an amazing gardening season, and I will talk to you soon. All right, bye. I'll see you next time.